Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ed Army, and I want to welcome you as we have my pick 5 of the cards coming out from BT20. Now, specifically, I have the cards from BT20 because 2.5 it does include BT19's cards. Now, I do want to preface before I start, these are my opinions. I don't necessarily think that if there's one card you think is slightly better than the other for this, that you could go ahead and not go ahead and choose it and buy it. I think it's a completely fine card. I think a lot of the cards are going to be readily accessible anyways because BT 2.5 has a lot of good stuff coming out of here. Now I will be excluding cards from say the limited pack that or the power up pack that we get as well inside the set, because I do think that we do not include that because those cards technically will come in every set and they're a smaller amount, so it is what it is because you'll just open a box if you open a box and get it. But there are cards here that I want to mention that I think are cards you should pick up or consider, for trading or just if you want to play them, that if you get them maybe you want to keep them. So we will get into it. This also does exclude like the serialized cards. The serialized cards are amazing. If you pull one, do whatever you want with it. They're cool. But we're talking about cards specifically out of the set. So this does have the BT19 cards as well as the BT20 cards. I just wanted to make that clear because I don't want people to be confused. But starting off, I have the card that I think out of BT19 support is the one that I think is going to get the most talk about because it is probably the one that was hyped relatively the most, that being Talmon Ace. Now, the main reason I want to talk about Talmon Ace is that if you are not going to play Sakuyamon, this technically is still a card to think about because of how good its effect is. Now, I do think that this card has two things going for it. One is its experimentation. Now, a lot of people are wondering why I would say experimentation. Is I think one thing I really want to promote on the channel as well is that I think that having the meta as your focus is not bad either. I think having casual as your focus is not bad either. My point is I always think it's somewhere in between. But personally, I think meta cards that have really good effects don't always just have to follow the straight and narrow pattern that a lot of meta players discover with them. So like Talmon Ace, most people are thinking about Ruin Mon Loop or Ruin Mode Loop. I personally think that's going to be probably the most focus as long as there's no ban list in between the time. That's really that's happens really quickly if we get one that says Ruin Mode's banned or something. But the point that I'm trying to get across here is that Talmon Ace is one of these cards that has a lot of experimentation. It allows you to on play and when Digivolving, if it's your turn, you get to use a single color use 5 cost or lower option card from your hand without paying the cost. The reason why I want to mention that is that there is a lot of facets that people maybe have not maybe tried out yet or teched out yet to see what this card can do in other decks. I'm not necessarily saying that people haven't. I'm just saying that this is a card that really breathes that maybe it's more good than just its one application. Additionally, its ability to, if it's your opponent's turn, you get to use giving them a security attack -1, and that Digimon that you give security attack -1 can't activate when Digivolving effects. So the reason why is that Talmon Ace is usually only focused on because of its first effect. Its second effect, though, as an Ace Digimon, is actually rather good because it locks down a Digimon from attacking, but more importantly, it can't use its when Digivolving effects. So inherently, that's just really good to lock down a Digimon because now if they Digivolve onto it, because maybe they want to use it instead of going for like attacks, they can't. It won't do anything. So just keep that in mind. I really like it. And it has an inheritable as some of the first Ace Digimon to have inheritables. It has the one attacking ability of one of your opponent's Digimon gets -4000 DP. So if you play this in some yellow deck and you just wanted to play it, I do think this is a rather good card. Another deck that I think might get some use out of this is something like Dynasmon because awkwardly enough, this is a data card, so is searchable from something like Candlemon. So you can use this in something like Dynasmon because I could see kind of this actually being used as a deterrent because your security gets rather low. So this would actually be a pretty cool card to use something like Dragon's Roar against your opponent on your turn, or like an option card to like hit them with. Or additionally, during your turn or their turn, you can use this to do the security attack -1 and really stymie their field. And if they choose to attack, you can actually respond with like Dynasmon Ace, so you can do that. You would be giving a lot of memory off of the overflow, but it's not the point. This card's still very good, so it is an option, and I do mention it out of the set as one of my big picks that I think you should really consider when you pull it. But additionally, moving into other cards, I think of the cards that are higher end, out of BT19, there are cards I would recommend. However, I don't know how they'll shake up for the metagame, so I will not mention them here. However, when we go into specifically BT20, which is where the bulk of the remaining cards are, I think the first card that comes to mind immediately that I will be showcasing here is going to be, where are you hiding? because I'm pulling it up to talk about it. Going to be, oh, there it is going to be this card in the form of Giga Seedramon. Now, Giga Seedramon is a card that I'm glad I called that would be in BT20. If you haven't seen my X Antibody video, go ahead and check it out. Funny enough. Point is, I really like that this card is here because the Seedramon archetype was getting a lot of support. And I was wondering if they were going to push the deck all the way. They decided to do it. The reason why I want to mention this card is that it pioneers the strategy of the actual, Seedramon line. So this now is a deck, like, because of this top end, because it does a lot of work and the X Antibody support for it. Additionally, it has security, attack +1, reboot, and blocker. So at 13,000 DP, if you have never met a boss Digimon, this is a boss Digimon. Additionally, because of the deck's design, there is jamming, so this card can survive checks easier. It has reboot and blocker, being very defensive, and a dual color blue-black also is important. But the key factor here is that when it's Digivolving and when attacking, from the DG Evolution cards of this Digimon with Metal Seedramon or X Antibody in its traits, you play one level 5 or lower Digimon card without paying the cost. Now, the reason this effect is huge, paired up with its all turns effect during its once per turn, when any of your Digimon are played from Digi Evolution cards, you Digivolve 2 on one of your opponent's Digimon. The reason this is huge is that this card can play any level 5 or lower Digimon card without paying the cost. So, in theory, any deck that is running some type of weird type of hybrid combination of cards that wants to just play this as a top end to the deck can effectively use this because it plays any level 5 and lower. So, like I said, room for experimentation, solid, goes into a lot of decks that have been released recently. So that was my next thing, is that this card is also an aquatic type and it carries it in its rule trait. So this is huge for like decks like the aquatic strategy that has been released in out of special or BT19 that would have been Yao's cards. So from Liberator, I think this is a big inclusion because now you can kind of change up the deck from not just playing Ryugumon. You can play Giga Seedramon alongside Metal Seedramon Ace, which we saw from the Deep Savers, which is another deck that gets a big buff thanks to this card, because now you can really focus on maybe wanting to not play Aegisdramon or Plesiomon, and you could just focus on having an all top end of like something like Metal Seedramon Ace and Metal Seedramon from any set you want to plug in, and then Digivolve that Metal Seedramon into this card to give your deck a more linear application. Additionally, we now also have the ability of Giga Seedramon being in aquatic, like the Plesiomon design of the deck, where you can kind of play this alongside Metal Seedramon, and now this is like your level 7 technically type, and just ignore, like I said, ignore Aegisdramon, and just play this as the top end. Like I said, this card is very good. It's blue-black, has a lot of different applications it could serve, but it's a card I wanted to mention because I think a lot of people are probably, I don't think they're sleeping on it, but they're not realizing how good it is yet. Like I said, this card, if it was an Ace Digimon, would be insane, but it is going to be paired up with its Ace Digimon in Metal Seedramon Ace, so this card is very good. So just putting it out there for you guys. Don't sleep on it. Now our next one is going to be one that is highly, I think, being slightly anticipated, but also being ignored. But because of BT20, it's starting to make its waves, and that's being Chaosmon Valderarm. Now, Chaosmon Valderarm and the Excel strategy is a deck that I will talk about in its own video because I think it is absolutely insane. I know East did a video on it, but after watching his video and also seeing the deck itself and reading the cards, I'm starting to understand them a lot better than I did before, because originally what I thought was this deck was already pretty okay. I just didn't think it was great. However, after reading everything again and really looking at what you can do, this deck has launched from good to great, and that's a big step forward in my opinion. The main reason why is Valderarm is the encapsulating piece of the deck because of its ability to DNA Digivolve with any of the specific colors, but more importantly, it can security attack +1 and has partition for either a yellow level 6 and or a green or black level 6, so this is important. But it's its ability for each of this Digimon's level 6 Digimon cards, you suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and then you gain 1 memory. Then none of their Digimon or Tamers can activate on play effects or unsuspend until the end of their turn. Now, if you're wondering why this is important, is that Valderarm by itself is a big problem for the opponent. Because of the security attack +1, it does many more checks than normal, so it's always good. But being able to have partition on this specific Digimon is really good because of what it plays. So, Varudamon, sorry, I said Varudamon. That is its name, I think, Varudamon, and the Bancho Leomon of the set are actually the main reason why this deck is good. Or, yeah, Vorud. Vorudurumon. Okay. I always think it's Vorudumon. I think that's probably the Japanese name. But Bancho Leomon and Vorudurumon, that's a long name, are actually the main reason why this deck is so powerful. Now, the main reason why I say Valderarm is because it's the boss Digimon, this is the one you should pick up, but because of how these Digimon function, where they're on play and when Digivolving effects work, and their ability to DNA into a Chaosmon, the main reason why you need Valderarm, and it's one of the pickups, is that this basically turns the whole deck online. And most of the cards from this set are all playable together. So if you pull this as your SR, you may want to keep it because there's a very good chance you're going to have all the cards for Excel, then have this card as your holo and think what to do. But for most people, I always recommend, if you see that you have most of a deck and you have almost all the pieces out of a box, do the right thing for yourself. Just try out the deck because you might actually really love it. And I think Excel is going to be one of these archetypes that does that, where people are going to fall in love with it when they try it because they have all the cards and they don't know what to do with it. And they're going to realize this deck is insane. This deck does a lot and it's really powerful and is one of the reasons why I have Valderarm as one of the cards you should make sure you pick up. So just making that clear to you guys, that's why I have it at the number 3 slot, because it's so good that you don't want to pass it up. Talking about number 4 is interesting because we have a lot of options in terms of like what you could technically talk about, but I will be actually having one that I talked about in function in the video, as we have Taka Mikazuchi Ace or Fenrir Lugomon. This one is here because this card screams to me two things. So this is on here for a different reason than most. The main reason I have this one on here is I feel that with its creation, there's a lurking feeling in me that when the ban list comes out, original Taka Mikazuchi from BT17 is probably going to 1 or being banned. Now, like I said, this isn't meant to be a ban list video, but this will be a component for this, is that I do understand that Taka Mikazuchi was originally meant to be the boss, but I do think that in order to lower the power level of Taka Mikazuchi, the deck, you really need to actually hit it, because if you don't hit it, I'm going to be honest, any player who plays that deck knows that if you don't hit Taka Mikazuchi, it doesn't really matter as much, because then we're just going to find ways into Taka Mikazuchi anyways. So that's my point of, it really feels like by creating Taka Mikazuchi Ace, this is going to be their way to remedy the problem they created with the original Taka Mikazuchi, so you'll have to play it. So the main reason why is, if this card is cheap, because most people need to play Taka Mikazuchi Ace, and the only reason you'd really play Taka Mikazuchi Ace in those builds is because you could, but you don't have to. You'd play this in the Seekers deck because you actually want to blast into this with your Kazuchimon and your and your Fenrir Lugomon, so you really want to go into this actually with them. However, like I said, the second reason is just if it gets banned, I promise you this card will probably go up in price a bit, because people will be finding ways to try to supplement the missing Fenrir Lugomon Taka Mikazuchi with this. So do keep in mind, that's like probably the biggest reason I have this card, is something you maybe want to pick up in my pick 5, because I do think this card, if the ban list does go the way I think it might, this card might out of nowhere catapult to being seen in play versus not being playable at all. But finally, we get down to the nitty gritty of the 5th and final card. Now, I think the last one is no shock, as this card is pretty much running around everywhere in the JP format. And when we get it, I think everybody's going to be wanting to play this card, as it's fine for the last Guardian to take his stand, as we have Omnimon X Antibody. So I have this card here. This is an obvious pick, I think, because a lot of people know how good this card actually is. Now, talking about what makes this card so strong, we have to look at what it does. So the main thing is this: it carries Raid, Piercing, and Blocker. Digivolves on top of any Omnimon for a cost of 2. It's actually the first tricolor Omnimon being able to Digivolve and being the colors of blue and red, which is, I don't think has happened on any Omnimon yet, so very cool. But more importantly, it's non-play when Digivolving. If Omnimon or X Antibody is in this Digimon's Digi-Evolution cards, you choose one or both players' Digimon and you delete all other Digimon. Then you return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of the deck. Basically, this is a board wipe, and it is a complete board wipe because it wipes your board as well, wipes your opponent's board, but then bounces their last thing. So basically, it has a way to remove things that can't be deleted by just targeting it as the bounce. Delete everything else and then bounce it, which is kind of hilarious. Then at the end of your turn, once per turn, one of your Digimon may gain Rush for the turn and attack without suspending. So if you're wondering why this is so good, Well, the main thing is, if for whatever reason you can play this, because it is 16,000 DP. I mean, sorry, 16 play cost. I said 16. Well, and 16,000 DP, but 16 play cost. You hard play this thing. I mean, I'm thinking if you're hard playing this thing from 10, you'd have to give your opponent 6. So bare minimum, you need like, I think what, 8 memory. I think, or no, about 7 or 6 memory to hard play to 16, because then you'd have to pay 6 and then give them 10. So you have to be at least at 6 memory to hard play this thing, which is kind of funny. But the point is, this card then allows you to give something rush and attack. So why this is important is that this card, like I said, is a board wipe. But more importantly, having raid piercing blocker means that it's going to fulfill a check or get rid of something. But the other point is, with this card, it is a game ender. If you hard play this thing and your opponent has no security, this thing will give itself rush and then just attack without spending and win the game, right? Like, that's pretty much it. Additionally, this card is also, funny enough, a way in many decks to finish the game, because in something like Omnimon Ace, I think this is a really important card, because now they have another option to Digivolve into besides Alter B, which was a good card, but I think Alter B was an option that a lot of times people didn't want to see it. You want to see this, because this thing is never dead, technically, because you can hard play it. Point is, Omnimon Ace can turn into this thing. It can do raid piercing blocker, the whole shebang, and really put a lot of damage on your field. But that's kind of the key thing here is, like, I look at Omnimon Ace. This card is everywhere, because any deck that would want to include this will try to include it. Any deck that has room or plays Omnimon will try to put this in their deck. Decks like, why is it not blinking? Deck like any of the Greymon or Garurumon decks would definitely like to play this as an inclusion. If they're already playing like Blitz Omni, for instance, you might want to use this card because it's just another addition for Blitz Omni. Additionally, there's other decks that just want to use it. Also, it's a Royal Knight. This has lots of synergy with other cards, something like GX, for a lot of people probably thinking this card obviously is going to be insane underneath a GX, giving it all those effects. It's a Liberator card too, so you have that inherent search power. Funny enough, the only deck I wish this would be able to Digivolve into would kind of connect, but it doesn't, is something like what's what I'm blinking, is the actual, gosh, what's my mind blinking? Zafagomon. I know they get their ace card, but it'd be really cool if they could use this, but they can't unless they're playing Medieval Gallantmon. Additionally, I think the cool thing is you can, if I'm right, you can use this in Royal Knight. I think people have been using it in Royal Knight. That's why a lot of the deck has kind of switched to being like a red-black color in the Japan format. So a lot of people are playing like black reds only for the Royal Knight Digimon because they want to use this card because it's really good. And if I'm right, it's because Yggdrasil does not block you from Digivolving, I think, on your opponent's turn, but it blocks you from Digivolving on your turn. So if I'm right, the card that you're going to use is going to combine it with Omekamon, if I'm right, from the set, from BT20. So that's another reason too, is just that Royal Knight gets a lot more powerful from the support. So a lot of people have been teching it as well. But the point is, this card is just going to be everywhere because everyone wants to play it. It's very solid. It gets the job done. So yeah, pretty much that's the main goal. This deck is very good. Or basically, sorry, this card is very good. Every deck that plays it will get a power bump in some way, and it's just really solid. But that's it, guys. Those are my pick 5. I picked all 5 of those because I do think that of the cards here that we've talked about, it really is important to look at kind of the elements of what you've gotten from each of them and why each deck is on the pick 5, because maybe they're a part of meta strategies, maybe they're just good in general. So like, X Antibody is basically like a Medieval Gallantmon from EX8. It's just a very good card, like people need it. Additionally, Takamikazuchi is obviously a part of its own deck. Valderarm's a part of its own deck, but still is like a very good card because I think this is something you want to keep when it's going to be a breakout card from its set, and there's going to be a lot of the cards from this set in here. So that's another thing I didn't mention. Valderarm actually is generic in terms of its DNA. So any yellow, green, black, yellow combination you want to use, that card can be made into it. So it's very good in general. So do keep that in mind. Additionally, Giga Seedramon, and also cards like cards like Taumon Ace, they're technically restricted to their colors or their color combinations, but they still have very good effects and abilities to want to be warranted in a lot of other like experimentation and allow you to enjoy it as you play, so that maybe you find new things that you maybe never have tried before. But pretty much, guys, that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope my pick 5 has helped you, and I do hope that you guys who are opening up BT 2.5 are enjoying what you're pulling. But as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.